Welcome back to Upper 90 for 2025, where it is time for my MLS predictions. The Eastern Conference is already out, and now it is time for the Western Conference. So let's jump right in. At the bottom, in 15th place, I have the Portland Timbers. And I feel bad to put such a massive club at the bottom of the heap, but this team was completely reliant on Evander last season, and he is gone off to Cincinnati. Eric Williamson is also gone in midfield. They haven't been able to defend set pieces or really at all for a couple of years, and Phil Neville has yet to prove that he is able to make playoffs in MLS even with Evander. They obviously do have Felipe Mora and Cabecita, but that is not enough. In 14th, I have the Vancouver Whitecaps, who got rid of the most entertaining coach in the league for a guy with no MLS experience. Stuart Armstrong was their biggest positive at the end of last season, and he is also gone now. Fafa Pico gave you a guaranteed 10 or 15 goal contributions, but he is in Miami now and unreplaced. Emmanuel Sabi is certainly an interesting signing as a once-capped USMNT international, but similarly to Portland, Vancouver have two high-level attackers, but it is just not enough. In 13th place, I have San Diego FC, the expansion side of 2025, and it's always difficult for an expansion side not only to play, but to predict. I think, though, that Luca De La Torre is the biggest reason that SDFC is not at the bottom of my predictions. A player who can push the ball in MLS is really, really key, and he can definitely do that at a high level. They also have two DP wingers that should be among the best in the league. So they will score goals, but probably not from their number 9. If they do get Kevin De Bruyne in the summer, they would become so much fun, but there are still massive question marks in this team, defensively, including at goalkeeper, which leaves them in no man's land for these predictions. In 12th place, I have Real Salt Lake, where I see a big drop-off from their third place finish last season. Emeka Eneli will once again be their best player in midfield next to Brian Ojeda, just creating a crushing midfield there. Check out my interview with Emeka Eneli on sbisoccer.com if you are interested. And he will feed the ball to Diego Luna or just create the chances himself as he's looking to do more of this season. But who is going to score the goals with Chicho Arango gone? I have no idea. Diogo Gonçalves is good. He's okay, along with Dominic Marchuk. They look okay so far, but not sufficient to push RSL into the playoffs for my liking. In 11th place, I have Houston Dynamo, who have lost their two best players in Hector Herrera and Coco Carrasquilla this offseason. Jack McGlynn comes in from Philadelphia to replace Herrera, but that is obviously a downgrade as McGlynn is much younger and has a lot of work to do, though I think it'll be a great situation for him and for his experience. Hopefully they bring in another number 10, but we will have to wait and see with that. I am excited to see more of Lawrence Inali this season, who was injured after scoring in his second MLS game last season, but I just think this team is very thin everywhere, and a couple injuries could really derail them, so I do not think that they will have enough to make playoffs. Also not sneaking into the playoffs will be Sporting Kansas City. Dejan Joveljic is a very good purchase as the first cash for player trade in MLS history as a replacement for Alan Pulido. He is a proven player for that DP striker role. I'm also confident in players like Eric Tommy and Willie Agata to contribute for SKC, but Captain Johnny Russell is out the door. Daniel Shalhoub had a huge drop-off last season, and SKC really need him to rebound if they want to make playoffs. They needed that chance creation last year, so they did bring in Manu Garcia, which seems a little bit risky to me based on his statistics, but at least they went and they finally spent the money on a number 10, so that is a good thing. But I am not confident that their defensive problems are solved, even if the ones in attack are, which is why they've slipped just out of the playoffs for me. Sneaking into those playoffs in 9th place is St. Louis City SC. They did very little business this offseason outside of a new coach with no MLS experience named Olaf Melberg To be fair to him, he has a great CV though. But I'm really banking on the fact that they were better towards the end of last season after the arrivals of Marcel Hartel and Cedric Toucher, who have both been fantastic in their early showings in MLS. So if all their top end talent is firing, things can look really good in St. Louis. I'm a huge fan of Edward Lovin. As anybody who watches this channel knows, João Klaus can get it done up top. But the supporting cast was insufficient last season, and it still is. Timo Baumgartel will hopefully help defensively, which is their biggest problem, but that is yet to be seen. This would be a fun playoff battle, though, if it does play out this way between two rivals, SKC and St. Louis. Hopefully, that will be the way it goes. I think ultimately the better defensive team will be the one to sneak in there. Austin FC, I have in 8th place because they brought in Brandon Vasquez and Mirto Uzuni in the offseason. Of course, they did send Sebastian Driussi out, which creates a little bit of a conundrum because you have the goal scorers coming in, but you have the chance creator going out. Perhaps Nico Estevez utilizes a back three like he did in Dallas to find that creation from the wingbacks. But regardless, I'm not particularly enthused by that hire. Especially in the way that Rodolfo Borrell was talking about the potential hires that he might have. But Nico Estevez did best in his first season in Dallas, so hopefully for Austin it can be the same thing. Plus, anybody who watches the channel knows how much I love Ilie Sanchez. What a great signing. But really, it is about Brandon Vasquez, who I think will score the goals to win games and earn points when Austin really do need them. In 7th place, and I know you've been wondering why I haven't named this team yet, it is the San Jose Earthquakes. You know, when Jeremy Abobasi left San Jose, I thought it was over for them, but then all of a sudden, they started making moves for the first time in recent memory. And that is probably just a cultural revolution under Bruce Arena, who is the coach and the sporting director there. He brought in Chicho Arango, who is probably the best piece of business in all of MLS this offseason. He was the MVP frontrunner through halfway through last season, and San Jose brought him in for just $1.4 million in GAM after RSL paid $6 million in cash last year. They also added Joseph Martinez for free to these chance creators of Christian Espinoza and Hernan Lopez. I just think that this team is going to score a ton of goals. But of course, they're also probably going to concede a ton of goals. Last season, they conceded 78, the most ever in MLS history. But of course, that was under Luchi Gonzalez. I'm hoping that Bruce Arena, with his intimate knowledge of MLS, can help fix that, as well as a fully healthy Daniel, who is one of the best goalkeepers in MLS in 2023. Those midfield defensive replacements have mostly come from New England, who finished 14th in the East last season. I get why there wouldn't be much confidence in that, but you got to remember that these are Bruce Arena's guys, right? Ian Harkes, Dave Romney, Mark Anthony Kaye were all brought to New England by Bruce Arena, and now he is bringing them all to San Jose. This is certainly optimistic, as I always tend to be with San Jose without getting any reward, but this time I do think it is different. There's always a surprise team in MLS, and in 2025, I think it will be San Jose. In 6th place, I have Minnesota United, where really not too much has changed. Last year they finished 6th. I think it seems logical they finished 6th again. Timo Pukki has left the club, but they have basically the same midfield problems where they get overrun, leaving them exposed defensively. But that usually only happens against the higher end opponents in this league, and they can usually not have those type of problems when they're not playing those high end opponents. Plus, they can score goals, as they showed us towards the end of last season. So I do think that they will comfortably make playoffs in a very competitive Western Conference. In 5th place, I have the Colorado Rapids, where I can really only see this team getting better. The rebuild worked last year, and now they're just building up top of that. There are no particularly worrisome outgoings, in my opinion, and they have acquired Josh Atencio and Teddy Kudipietro. Josh Atencio is a particularly big addition, in my opinion. He provides that extra bite in midfield that Colorado really need. Their biggest problem last season was kind of stopping that transition, and I think that he will really, really help with that. So perhaps they could even go higher than fifth, but I think this is a pretty fair, even prediction for Colorado. In fourth place, I have FC Dallas, and they absolutely could go either way, as more than half of their starting lineup from 2024 is gone. But I think that could be a good thing for a team that finished in 11th place last year. Obviously, that includes two of their DPs, Jesus Ferreira and Alan Velasco, but they brought in Lucho Acosta, who is much, much better than either of those two players. They also brought in many other players to fill the other gaps. But really, I am mostly putting my faith in Eric Quill to make these pieces fit together. He seems to be doing that in every job that he's had. I love the way that his CV looks, and this is his first MLS chance. And there's just lots of talent on this roster. So if he can get those pieces to fit well, it will look good. But even if not, Lucho Acosta and Petar Musa, to me, combined equal a playoff berth as long as they're able to stay healthy. So I fully believe that this team can push to fourth or higher if all of these things go right. But this is definitely their upside. In third place, I have the reigning MLS Cup champions, LA Galaxy, where there are definitely some concerns. Ricky Puig will be out most of the season as he recovers from his ACL tear. Dejan Joveljic was sold to Sporting Kansas City, and you brought in Christian Ramirez as a good replacement, but certainly a downgrade. Joseph Painsil is also injured to start the season, but still, with him and Gabriel Peck, who I have no idea why he was not sold or why a team didn't come in with a large bid. Regardless, with those two finishing the chances created by Marco Reus, I still think that this team should score a lot of goals. They've also been better defensively since Emiro Garces came in to partner Mayo Yoshida at center back in the middle of last season. Lucas Sanabria, their $5 million defensive midfield signing, should help fill those gaps from losses like Gaston Brugman and Marky Delgado, along with Elijah Winder, who I think is a really fun signing from USL. So I do see a drop-off in this Galaxy team, but hopefully with Royce, he allows it not to be too big of a drop-off without Puig and Joveljic. In second place, I have the other LA team, LAFC, where Mateusz Bogusz and Christian Oliveira have left the club, but Denny Bouanga has stuck around. He is a guaranteed 20 goals a season, always an MLS Golden Boot contender. You hope that Olivier Giroud would be also in that category, a major improvement from last year where he didn't really hit the ground running at all. But honestly, I don't see signs yet that he's going to do this. I saw them play in preseason against Club America. He didn't look too great there either. Hopefully that changes for LAFC's sake. But at least they have the best backup striker in all of MLS, in my opinion, in Jeremy Ebobisse, which was a great, really clever addition, in my opinion. But it is also a positive for LAFC that for the first time in years, they will have all three DP spots filled to start the season, as they are bringing in Cengiz Under on loan. Really seems like kind of a holdover loan, as it's just 6 months with an option to buy, waiting for that option of Antoine Griezmann in the summer. And if he does come, I will say that LAFC win the Western Conference. But either way, David Martinez on that wing could be the breakout star of the season in MLS, which I will continue to advocate should be an award in this league. And yes, there is lots of turnover on this team, but that is how LAFC does things year over year, and it always works. This year, they have gone back to that 2022 MLS experience roster build, and that won them the double in 2022. They brought in players like Mark Delgado for $400,000 from rivals LA Galaxy in the first El Tráfico trade. They got Yao Yaboa for only $50K, and Kosi Tafari was an elite piece of business for $300K plus an international spot. So that MLS roster build looks to be a good idea and gives a good foundation for LAFC going forward. But topping the Western Conference is the only team that I have no concerns over is the Seattle Sounders, who basically have 4 DPs on their roster by getting Jesus Ferreira, who was a DP in Dallas and is not a DP in Seattle. He should be good for 10 or 15 goals. Jordan Morris should be good for the same. Hopefully Pedro de la Vega can stay healthy and contribute a lot more than he did last season. But regardless, they have the GOAT Paul Rothrock. If you know, you know. But it's just such a deep team and talented in every single position. And a little nerd note here, the build of that roster is so incredible because by my calculations, let me know Sounders fans if I'm wrong on this, but to me, they have all 3 U22 spots open, available after dealing Leo Cho and Josh Atencio. Nobody, I think, uses those supplemental roster spots better than Craig Weibel. So just imagine how good this roster could get if they start to sign those U20 and continue to build on this roster. It is such a deep team, such a talented team on every position on the field. There's no reason that they don't win the Western Conference, in my opinion. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, you made it this far, please drop a like and subscription. It really, really helps out the channel, and I will see you next time.